T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler. He's your only black friend, so he's your best black friend. I wouldn't trade him for another black friend, because black friends are rare, as you should be aware. He smiles like Richard Pryor, so just sit and stare. It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler. It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler. It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler.
Hello, everybody. This is Tyler Preston 20. I'm here with a special guest today. Her name is Rin Michaelis, and we're going to talk about what's going on in Texas. How are you doing?
I'm good, and I pronounced it Rin Michaelis.
Oh my God! I just already messed up your name. Oh my.
Yeah, everybody does. Everybody does. Rin. I just go by Rin. I don't really go by the Michaelis part.
I am so sorry. Oh my God! Just the first seconds, and I already screwed it up.
Don't worry about it. At least you never did it deliberately. For the most part, most people never did it deliberately.
Yeah, usually there's been discussion about these sort of people. Like you say, well, you see, if you accidentally mispronounce a name or cannot fully pronounce a name, that's evidence of racism or whatever. So
yeah, what about white people who have names that are difficult to pronounce?
yeah, something like, super uber foreign. Like, I don't know. I cannot think of one right now, honestly.
I could, people mispronounce Hunter's last name is Avalon, but people mispronounce Avalon. And it's kind of like, initially I was, mispronouncing Devereaux. It took me a while to get to Devereaux because Devereaux looks like Deverox.
Exactly. So let's show this screen right here about what's going on in Texas. So Texas Senate bill drops teaching required that Ku Klux Klan is morally wrong. Huh. That's interesting.
Oh, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all whatsoever. I've been predicting this for a long time. You've been predicting this for a long time. Your boy Pats. I'm quite sure you know who your boy Pats is. He predicted
Yeah, I
that
talked
this
to him
was going
before.
to. Yeah, he predicted this was going to happen. With a long time, like with we all remember Francesca Ramsey, asking people, "Where are you from?" It's racist, and it's like, saying that a black person is well spoken, it's racist. Like, sure, you could mean it sarcastically. A person could say it like, in a sarcastic tone or passive aggressively. But I mean, for the most part, it's like, I think most people could recognize a compliment.
True, it's true. But there seems to be a video down there. Can you play the video too?
Oh, I never played the video before.
Okay, so what you do for a screen share is that you screen share it, then you press share audio, and then the audio will come through the software. All right, it's still loading up right now. Huh. So while it's still loading up, oh, there it is. Okay, it's
Can you
starting.
hear it? Can you hear it?
No. So what you have to do right now is that close the window right now. Then close screen share.
So okay.
Close it. Then go back to screen share. Then click share audio.
Okay, wait. Okay, so screen share.
And then it
Um.
says share audio if you go to the next tab.
Okay. Okay. I click screen share. The blue button that says screen share. Then I have this thing that says your entire screen, application window, opera tab.
Okay. So, how can I explain it? So, to screen share, okay, so you press screen share, like you have to go to like one of the tabs for your browsers. I'm using Chrome right now, so I have a Chrome tab, and then for your browser, I guess maybe it's not Chrome or whatever, but you go to that tab right there. It's the third tab. Then you press share audio underneath it, and then it should share the audio.
Can you hear that?
Okay, play it right now.
Remain in our nation's capital, urging Congress to pass
Yeah, I can hear it. I can
voting
hear it.
legislation, a bill banning critical race theory in Texas classrooms, passed the Texas Senate here in Austin today. This would apply to Texas public schools, kindergarten through high school. Critical race theory is an academic discipline exploring the idea that the concept of race was created to suppress groups of people, and that in the United States, several systems, from slavery to the modern day legal system, are inherently racist because they were created to maintain racial superiority. Mineola Republican Senator Brian Hughes says the bill would require a broad framework, but doesn't affect what is taught, creates a civics training program for teachers, and prohibits teachers from being compelled to talk about current events or controversial issues, among other things. Those against the bill argue that the bill would brush aside or whitewash history.
Our classrooms should be places for fostering a diverse and fact-based discussion of various perspectives. They're not for planting seeds for a divisive political agenda.
This legislation, while well-intentioned, unduly would restrict important but challenging conversations that otherwise should occur in classrooms. My opinion is based partly on the testimony of teachers who testified about the unnecessary pressure, intimidation, and uncertainty it would create for them. Trust our teachers, one testified.
That from the Senate floor today. The bill passed on an 18-4 vote in the Texas Senate. It, of course, now heads to the House, but without a quorum in the House of Representatives, no action can be taken. Now,
that is really crazy. Wait, the video is no longer available. Well, anyway, I guess we could read the rest of the whole entire article to make up for the video, okay?
Well, I mean, I do think that the woman that was speaking has a point. Like, I do think that we should have been teaching kids how to think instead of using this classroom to indoctrinate people and tell students what to think.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy though, but let's read the rest of the article. Let's see. I'm trying to see what's underneath the video. Can you go a little bit down?
Well, I was thinking of this little. Do you want me to read this part where it says eliminated requirements also include the writings of Martin Luther King? I did one of the comments on that, because, when you talk to the far left, they hate Martin Luther King too. Because they didn't think that Martin Luther King went far enough. They didn't think that Martin Luther King went far enough, so they call him a coon and whatnot. They call him a coon and Uncle Tom.
Yeah, not only that though, but I noticed that a lot of these, ideas for critical race theory just stem from the idea of the rejection of colorblindness. Because Martin Luther King, he said that we need to judge people based upon the content of their character, while critical race theory straight out says that you need to not be colorblind to be more race conscious, as they would put it.
Exactly. That's the reason why the far left actually hates Martin Luther King, because whenever you say, whenever you quote the "I have a dream" speech, I have a dream that, kids would be judged by not by the color of their skin, but by the contents of the character. It's like no. We gotta be focused on race. You gotta be racially aware. So the left also hates Martin Luther King. So it's quite weird because it's like far left and far right alliance.
Hello, Chess of Honor 23. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, it's true because the thing about it though is that the whole entire race conscious thing, I think it only makes people more racist because if you're not necessarily judging a person individually, you start to, set low standards for that person just because they're a certain race. Because I remember hearing directly from my brother. He's a teacher. He's going to be a teacher. It's like a small little anecdote right now, not necessarily concrete, but I've been hearing from him as part of his whole entire training routine that basically they are required to, up kids' score based upon their race. So if someone was like, black, to get like an extra point just because they're black or whatever. So I think having that kind of system doesn't really help at all because it only adds more lower expectations for people.
That is not the first time I heard that. Like for me, that isn't news to me. Like I've heard, words from like Mr. Medicare. Not many people know this, but did you know that Mr. Medicare wanted to be a school teacher?
No, I did not know that.
I know from his persona, he is kind of like the internet bad boy, and many people look at him over the internet and view him as completely ruthless. But he actually went to school, and I think I think he got pretty far ahead. Like he at least got to reach the part where he actually got to be a student teacher, and he actually got to teach students. And he noticed that when he was teaching the kids, he noticed that the black kids were behind, and he wanted to tutor them for free. He's like, you don't have to pay me extra. I would do this for free. Let me tutor the kids because, and this was actually verified on the radio that the early child development is really, really critical, but the radio was talking about this in relation to COVID-19 and, schools closing down. And, and Miss Medicare, like the radio, they said the exact same thing, that early childhood, learning development, it is really, really critical at a certain age that you learn how to read or whatnot. You learn your read, you learn your math and whatnot, because if you don't, then you're kind of held back for the rest of your life. And even the radio said the same thing, but they were saying that the students who were in schools closed down due to COVID-19, that they are likely to be poorer than millennials. Like millennials, we went to school, we got our education without missing anything because of COVID. And but it said that future kids that miss school because of COVID-19, they are a lot likely to be like, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of dollars in debt, because you could never ever get that back. Nothing, it's called like in the classroom education, and it's like Mr. Medicare, it's like, hey, I want to teach these kids, but this is the old live stream before COVID-19. He said, hey, I want to be there for these kids. You don't have to pay me. I would do it for free. But the school was like, if there's a black kid and they're struggling, just pass them, because they don't want to look racist. And because schools do not want to look racist, they think like, well, if we fail a black kid, we might look racist. So even if the black kid was doing poorly, they'll just give you an A anyway. They'll pass you anyway.
Yeah, that's like the most racist thing I probably ever heard, actually. Like, I think, if a kid is failing, regardless of, their background, that you should judge every single kid based upon their work. If they're doing good on tests, if they're doing their homework, or whatever. I think you should judge each kid based upon those grades, based upon what they do. So this idea that you need to give like, extra grade for like a kid just because they happen to be darker than you is like the bigotry of low expectations.
Yeah, I agree with that. And not only that, like not even Mr. Medicare talked about it, but I actually heard something along those lines happening in New York, and it was mentioned by Bill Maher. Well, Bill Maher talked about I think that the mayor of New York is Mayor De Blasio, where it's kind of a lot like it's kind of like he's like lowering the SAT requirement because he feels like black people are not keeping up with white people, and because black people aren't keeping up with white people, he's just lowered the standards. It would have the appearance that black people are keeping up with white people, which I mean, I think it's really, really racist and whatnot. It's really pathetic.
Absolutely. So let's continue with the article. Let's see. In a new political law in Texas, the Republican dominated state Senate has passed a bill to eliminate a requirement that public schools that teach the Ku Klux Klan and its white supremacist campaign of terror are morally wrong. The cut is among some 2 dozen curriculum requirements dropped from the new measure, along with studying Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, the works of United Farms Workers leader Cesar Chavez, Susan B. Anthony's writing about the women's suffrage movement and Native American history. Critics says that the state is promoting an anti-civics education. Senate Bill 3 passed last Friday, 18-4, dropped most mentions of people of color and women from the state's required curriculum. Wow. Wow. That is crazy. All of that is like crazy. Whew. When you fight fire, you're gonna get fire back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. I am not surprised because, I mean, when you really pay attention to social justice, it almost feels like they're, proving the Klan's message right. Especially since, like, why do you need to lower the education requirements, for Black people? That is up there with, race and IQ, where you would think you would have to to lower the qualifications for black people, you would have to agree with the bell curve and race IQ that you would have to think that black people are naturally low IQ.
That is absolutely crazy. So, I think, of course, by removing people like Martin Luther King and Cesar Chavez and the writings about the women's suffrage movement, you're literally just whitewashing history. Because the thing about it, though, prior to some sort of conceptions about the pro-critical race theories, people thinking that the anti-critical race theory people are against teaching American history. Spoiler alert: we're not against teaching American history. The thing about it, though, like I think teaching kids about important events actually make them more well-rounded to about our history. Because if you're erasing certain historical aspects about the history of America, you're basically not giving them the full story about like what's happened with Martin Luther King or Cesar Chavez or the women's suffrage movement and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. We should be teaching Martin Luther King in school, but like most importantly, I do think that we should teach kids how to think instead of merely telling them what to think. Like, oh, you should think this, you should think that. I mean, a school shouldn't be like a cathedral. Kids need to learn how to think for themselves.
Yeah, the thing about it though is that unfortunately, because there are some teachers who are more politically active, they're trying to force their little politics onto the students, like forcing something like like I said earlier, CRT onto the students, or sometimes they would just force like far left ideologies such as feminism and the like. So it seems as though that like a lot of teachers they want students to teach kids a certain way. There was this white woman from TikTok. She said that she was forcing social justice into like the fourth grade class and try to make them more race conscious. And so I'm not against students having to learn about the history. What I am against though is when teachers start to use their personal political opinions to force it onto the kids. That way they become their own, soldiers for like their personal ideology.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too. Like, like I was about to bring that up, but you beat me to it. But yeah, I saw like, and like none of the things that she says were black language were actually black language. Like sheesh or like, that is fire. Like, how is that black language? I mean, it's kind of like, and it's kind of like, it brings the truth to the Klan's message. It's kind of like being anti-racist is anti-white because it's kind of like it is so ridiculous because it's like, what do you mean by black language? I mean, what do you mean? We speak a certain way, it's different. I mean, okay, sure, there are some black people who are like, that speak Ebonics or whatnot, but still it's kind of like sheesh, everybody says that. It's not really unique to black people. Everybody says that is fire. Everybody says that, and it's kind of like, I mean, or like look at Eminem. It's like he talks, whatever. And like nobody really thinks anything of it. And I think he initially got in a lot of hate being a white rapper. I think he initially got in a lot of hate for it, but eventually like everybody just thinks nothing of it.
That is true. Okay, let me see a comment right here. Let's see. Teachers should keep their politics out of the classroom unless it's completely necessary or relevant. Teacher, although, should not punish students for having different opinions. I agree. I definitely agree. All right, let's see the rest of. Okay, there's like another comment here right here. Wow, people have different opinions than me. Okay. I'm not sure if it's a troll or not. Anyway, this includes eliminating a requirement that students be taught the history of white supremacy, including but not limited to the institution of slavery, the eugenics movement, and the Ku Klux Klan, and the way it's morally wrong. All right, let's go to the bottom to that tweet. Here's why Governor. Wait, you kind of skipped this tweet up there. Okay, right there, yeah. Governor Abbott added critical race theory to the special session. He doesn't want our kids to learn that white supremacy is morally wrong. You read that right. We must trust our teacher. We must defend the truth in our classroom. SB3 does the opposite. Wow. Yeah, that is crazy.
I mean, I'm black and I don't really care for critical race theory either.
Oh, I thought you quit YouTube in 2016 once you lost your last channel. No, I haven't quit. I've been doing videos for a long time after my first channel was like suspended by YouTube. Let's see. The measure slides out more curriculum requirements from a already restricted Texas education law. HB 3979 passed last month as part of conservatives' fear-mongering about critical race. Well, I don't necessarily think it's like, a conservative issue for critical race theory. Like, you don't necessarily have to be on the right to be against critical race theory, because if you're against like the ideas, anybody, no matter their ideological points, could be against it. So I don't believe for a single second that critical race theory is just solely based upon, conservative, when anyone could be whatever kind of political ideology they want to be and be against it. Let's see. The term critical race theory is not explicit.
No, you skipped a part. Are you going to read that part too? A framework for studying institutional racism that's just really taught in K through 12 schools. I mean, but to me, it's kind of like I don't think it's healthy for black kids to learn helplessness, like I don't think that it's healthy for black kids to learn you're a victim, because you're just gonna create black kids that have a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, the thing is that for this whole entire thing for teaching institutionalized racism. Well, yeah, I believe, of course, when we have to go back to the definition of words, institutionalized racism would mean that it's racism that's like openly endorsed by the state through like laws or like legislation. And so I would say in terms of slavery, when I was like going to school, I was taught about, the evils of slavery and, of course, what's been going on with like the whole civil rights movement and the fight against segregation. And so I would say at least maybe like for many schools, maybe not all schools, but maybe like a lot of the schools, that they probably do in fact teach students like the historical aspect of institutionalized racism by slavery and by segregation. Let's see. Yeah, we said like a framework for studying institutional racism that is rarely taught in pre-12 schools. The term critical race theory is not explicitly mentioned in either the law that is passed or in this current Senate bill. The new bill echoes language from last month's law that bars teachers from requiring students to develop an understanding of the 1619 Project, which calls for more form like pronouns. Examination of the significance of slavery in American history. Wait, by the way, do you know what is this 1619 Project? I keep hearing about it.
No, if you want, when we're through with this article, I could click on the link.
Sure, why not? Because I keep hearing about 1619 Project, but I don't know what it is.
I don't know either.
Yeah, because I've been watching like these sort of like debates about the 1619 Project, but I never really took the time to study the ideology about the 1619 Project.
Yeah,
So
I think that Tim Pool mentioned it when he was debating Hunter Avalon.
yeah, because like during like the whole entirety of like last year, I had to dig up like a lot of resources to study for critical race theory to see what it is. And so during that time period, I unfortunately did not study like the 1619 Project because I didn't see that on my radar. All right. It also retains the language that teachers may not be compelled to discuss current events or controversial issues of public policies or social affairs. And if they do, they cannot defer to any one perspective. Well, the thing is, though, like controversial events and stuff, like I guess you could say that history could be like inherently controversial depending on like the subject you're talking about. So I guess for current events, like again, I don't necessarily think that teachers should force their own political beliefs onto the students, or try to be as neutral as possible when it comes on these sort of issues, and to teach stuff in a neutral way.
I agree with you. I agree with you. My problem with social justice is that, it seeks to indoctrinate kids. It would be like, think of like the polar opposites. Imagine if you learned, that, like Mein Kampf is going to be taught in schools. You may initially think, okay, if you learned how to view it critically, then no problem. But what if not only was, Mein Kampf, was, taught in schools, but, all the kids come out, uncritically supporting the Nazi regime.
Let's see. The 1619 Project is an anti-American, frankly quite racist, perverted view of history that ignores lots of facts about what happened in the New World when settlers started to colonize it. Okay. Well, I guess like I said earlier, I haven't studied. Excuse me. I haven't studied it myself, but I'm gonna probably study it like much later, maybe if I have free time to do that. Let's see. Let's see. Democratic State Senate attacked the Senate bill and that cause in particular as an attempt to tie the hands of our teachers. The Dallas Morning News reported, how could a teacher possibly discuss slavery, the Holocaust, or the mass shootings at the Walmart in El Paso, or at the Southern Lands Springs Church in my district without giving deference to any one perspective? She asked. Though the new bill essentially erased the cautionary lessons to be learned from the Ku Klux Klan, Republican, Governor Dan Patrick praised the legislation for rejecting philosophies that espouse that one race or sex is better than another. What? What? That is crazy. Like, I don't think, teaching kids about the KKK and these other historical events is telling people that one race and sex is better than the other.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, if some people in social justice were right that there are, racist people in government. Like, not that long ago, I think it was yesterday, there was somebody who viewed there's a senator in Tennessee who viewed the Grand Wizard of the KKK as a historical hero. And yeah, you hear that right? It's like this guy who's a senator in not Texas but Tennessee viewed the very first Grand Wizard of the KKK as a hero, and he got a lot of backlash for saying that. So, like, are there racist people in government? Like, yeah, sure, and I do think that they're taking advantage of social justice, because social justice is not egalitarianism. Social justice is far removed from egalitarianism, where it's kind of like, it's like, I don't care what race you are, I don't care what your skin tone is. Everybody should be treated exactly the same. I am not going to pay attention to your skin color at all whatsoever.
Okay, a comment from Chess of Honor 23. It basically says America was built for slavery and only slavery, while Britain objected the idea of making a new colony solely for slavery. What? Okay. All right, I'll try to, research more about this whole 1619 project. So, all right, let's see. Parents want their students to learn how to think critically, not to be indoctrinated by the ridiculous leftist narrative that America and our Constitution is rooted in racism. Oh, that's the whole entire idea for critical race theory right there, is that everything, is rooted in racism, that everything is racist. Well, it's true that the foundation of, America was like, racist in nature, like with the slavery and of course, like what was the segregation of minorities. I don't think like, in the present day that every single thing you need to assume that's because of racism. For example, I guess the lack of, racial diversity is not proof that, of course, it must be because of racism. So I don't think that, of course, when you put like racism to everything, it's almost like, the sort of like God of the gaps kind of argument. Like,
Yes. It's like God of the gaps. It's like you read my mind. I was just thinking, of exactly that. It's like you're just they're just indoctrinated kids, and I had to agree with what's his name. It's like I do have to agree that parents would want their students to learn how to think critically and not be indoctrinated by the ridiculous leftist narrative. I had to agree with that. Like, I believe that we should teach kids how to think critically, how to think for themselves, and be their own person rather than teachers. Anyway, kind of like I think like parents and trying to be the moral guide for students, and like, you got to think like me, you got to come out of it being like a social justice warrior. Like, have you seen Bering's video? Like, Bering did a video with Sugar Tits.
it's been like
And
I haven't heard that name in like a long, long time. Like, he still makes videos.
yeah, Bering still makes videos.
Okay, so what did he do with Sugar Tits?
Okay, like, there was this school. I think it's in New York, or New Jersey one, and it's kind of a lot like, it's kind of like what they want white people to be, and they're like, it's kind of like, they're like, white people should aim to be race traitors, but they're teaching that in school. They're like,
What?
yeah, okay, it's kind of like, maybe I could screen share Bering's video, and like, like, I could screen share it and you could see for themselves, where it's like, in New York, a teacher wants to inspire kids to be race traitors, and that's what they're teaching in schools. Like, if you're white, aim to be a race traitor. And it's like, what? That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, I also have a video I could share too, because I found it more recently on Twitter, where there was like, I guess, this college campus in America, and they were just teaching kids about white privilege. It's like college kids. And so it's like they say, well, list your privilege of being a white person. It's like, oh my God. Like the thing about white privilege is that I don't necessarily understand it because I think people, no matter their background, are born in different circumstances. I cannot necessarily assume that someone has it better than me just because they happen to be a certain race. Because, like you said earlier, egalitarianism is all about judging things like on an individual basis. And so I cannot necessarily say that someone has it better than me just because they're a certain skin color, because I don't know their circumstances. I don't know like what their life is like. And so maybe my life might be better than theirs. And it's not because I'm black, but it's because, I might have like more, stuff, more privileges than they do in terms of class. So I don't understand like this sort of idea of like, white privilege that someone has it better in life just because you happen to be a certain skin color.
Well, it's a bit of a misnomer. Like it should be, what's it, class privilege? I think, it's kind of like, because when they do talk about white privilege, you're like, oh yeah, like white people are more likely to have two parents, and black people are more likely to have one parent. And, if you had two incomes, you're more likely to have, financially wealthier, like your parents could combine their income to send you to college. But it's kind of like a black kid, being born in a single mother household is more likely to drop out of school. That seems to be much more like economic privilege than anything to do with your race. Because
Exactly.
like what about the white people who do grow up in a single parent household, and what about black kids that never experienced a divorce, and so they have the financial income of both their parents, and their parents sent them to college.
Right. It comes back to the whole entire like, racism with the gaps kind of argument. It must be because of racism. It must be because you're white. It's not because of these other kind of factors. It's just because you're white.
Yeah. Do you want to read the last bit of the article?
Sure, after that we read the last bit of the article, show me the video from Bering and then we could react to the video. All right,
Okay.
let's see. The legislation must be considered in the House, which is also led by Republicans. The House, however, currently lacks the quorum required for any votes. Democrats filed the states earlier this month to block a new restrictive voting bill. Okay, is there anything more?
Did you want me to click on the, what's it, 1619? Where is it?
The 1619 project?
Budget. Uh, when I click on it, eh,
It's not loading up right now.
when I click on it, I mean, I'm just, um, it just says, like, senior bid for 1619 project's creator, Niccolo Hannah Jones, has been resubmitted. I see a different article. I just see a wide range of articles. It doesn't send me to a specific article.
Oh, that's fine. I'll research about the 1619 project much later then.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not really helpful.
All right,
Okay.
so let's see the video from Bearing. So what you do the same thing like you did with the article. Just go to your tab, click share, and then you share the audio, and then the audio should come from the video.
Okay.
But that is crazy that, Texas would do this sort of thing. But like I said, I'm not surprised because, if you fight fire, fire will be fought back.
It's kind of like every action has an equal but opposite reaction.
Yep, Newton law.
It's kind of like why I just much more would go like, hey, instead of telling kids what to think, we should just teach them how to think. Oh, well,
Right.
I did. Wait a minute. Let me click screen share. I need to find a particular section. But, let's see, screen share, screen,
And also share audio.
share audio. Um, yeah. Yeah, New York City Public Schools ask parents to reflect on their whiteness. And it's, oh, who is he again?
Oh no, it's still loading.
Mark
Okay, there it is. Okay, there it is. Play it.
reportedly sent a survey to white parents asking them to identify their level of whiteness.
Yeah, see, this is just a white thing. There's no like level of blackness memo.
A city public school trade.
What's up? What's wrong with the video?
Oh, you can't hear anything?
No. Like, it's playing so slowly. Like, it's not playing at normal speed.
It's not, I could check real quick. I do got normal speed on.
Okay, continue to play.
I could read it if you can't hear what she's saying.
Yeah, I cannot hear it at all.
If you can't hear it, okay. A city public school principal is asking parents to reflect on their whiteness, passing out literature and extols white traders who dismantle institutions. Education officials confirmed to the Post on Tuesday the woke offensive at the East Side Community School in Manhattan features a ranking list titled The 8 White Identities, which ranges from white supremacists to white abolitionists.
Okay, the white identities thing I read before on my channel is like as bad as you think it is. It's just terrible.
What did you say is terrible?
You're kind of cutting off right now. Like their connection is really bad.
My connection's bad.
Yeah. Like you're kind of breaking up right now.
What do we do?
Okay, so what you do? So try not sharing the screen. Just like play the video without sharing the screen and just read parts of the article. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, much better. Like it's way better without you sharing the video. I don't know why it's like cutting off right now.
Okay. Do you want me to reread what I just said?
Yes, please, because the whole entire thing was like cutting in and out.
Okay, a city public school principal is asking parents to reflect on their whiteness, passing out literature and expose white traders who dismantle institutions. Education officials confirmed to the Post on Tuesday. The woke offensive at the East Side Community School in Manhattan features a ranking list titled The 8 White Identities, which ranges from white supremacists to white abolitionists.
Oh my god! Like I said before, I remember reading that white identities thing before. I also remember reading some sort of pyramid chart like a long time ago too, where like if you were to do something, you're like a white supremacist or something. It was crazy, the whole pyramid chart stuff. And so I'm not surprised this is actually being applied to school again. And I guess I'm gonna use that for like a citation for my upcoming debate.
Yeah, it's kind of like says the curriculum written by Baron Hesse, an associate professor of African American Studies at Northwestern University in Illinois, claims there is a regime of whiteness. I mean, that is a horrible way to talk about white people. You know, a regime of whiteness.
Whiteness. Wow.
Huh?
That's like really like dehumanizing. Like imagine if somebody were to say like, there is some sort of regime of Jewishness or whatever. Imagine if they were to say that sort of language right there, how people would be upset about that.
Yes, there is a regime of whiteness makes white people sound like they are the villains of a horror movie. You know, like it speaks of white people as if people are demons from hell. And there are action-oriented white identities. People who identify with whiteness are one of these. History writes above the 8-point list.
Absolutely crazy. Like, wow. A regime of whiteness. how could possibly so dehumanizing for saying this whole like it's like what you said earlier, like they just try to demonize an entire group of people just because they're a certain skin color. By any chance, have you read this whole entire study about how white people are parasites or something? Like there was like a yeah, like there was a study that was literally said whiteness is a parasites.
Yeah, which is why I'm not surprised that Texas did what it did. I mean, because every action has an equal but opposite reaction. And it's kind of a lot like calling white people a parasite. I mean, while I don't agree with what Texas did, I view it as an inevitability. Inevitability.
True, like you said, opposite act, like the whole entire Newton's laws thing, like every action have an opposite and equal reaction. So I guess when you see stuff like this, like, oh no, hell no, I'm gonna overreact and just try to deny history altogether, which is crazy too, because I think, of course, the answer lies in the middle. That, of course, do not teach political ideologies in schools, but don't neglect American history. That's the middle ground right there.
Yeah, I agree, but it's kind of a lot like, centrists, according to the far left, centrists are white supremacists too. Like I mean, I think we've both been called a coon and an Uncle Tom,
Oh
a
yeah, many times.
fascist,
Yeah, many times on my first channel, many times.
Yeah, and it's like I've been called a coon, a Sambo, I've been called, self-hating, I've been called all sorts of things. I've been called a Nazi, I've been called a fascist, and it's like all for being a centrist.
Yeah, there's like this sort of meme that I see on Twitter. I hate Twitter, where there's this drawing like one side has the Ku Klux Klan, and the other side has I guess social justice activists. It's like both sides are the same, and they try to dehumanize the centrists in that meme.
Yeah, but I've seen citrus take that comic and we have the left side say kill all landlords, and then the centrist is on the side saying you're both crazy.
Yeah, the thing is though, like with the Ku Klux Klan and the whole, social justice activist stuff, I would probably put the text for the social justice side, we want to overthrow America, or anti-fall, whatever, like you're a fascist, and then I don't need to change much for the Ku Klux Klan side, so I would say, yeah, you both are crazy, you both are stupid.
Yeah. Let me continue to read the article. It's about time we build an ethnography of whiteness, since white people have been the ones writing about and governing others, Hesse adds. In between the two extreme identities of supremacists and abolitionists are such categories of white voyeurism, defined as wouldn't challenge a white supremacist, desires non-whiteness because it's interesting, and white privilege or sympathetic to a set of issues, but only privately, won't speak at in solidarity publicly because benefiting through whiteness in public. Some POC are in this category as well.
Okay, that is, wow, no comment really. It's just dumb. I'm losing brain cells just listening to all that. Wow, yeah, let's fight fire with fire. Let's fight going racism with more racism.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like I always thought that the social justice narrative did more to help the KKK than it did, like at least like when when we were growing up, people were mocking the KKK as conspiracy theorists. Like Saturday Night Live would play would add out being the KKK just to make them look like crazy, unhinged conspiracy nutters.
Right. The thing about the whole entire thing with all of this is that There was this one video that was like, woke versus racist. And I remember it generated like a lot of controversy from these people saying that you're overly exaggerating and blah, 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 blah. Well, no, they're not necessarily exaggerating. It's funny because it's true.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it seems like most people would agree with us because when you look at the upvotes and downvotes, I mean, it actually received very few. It actually received very few, downvotes.
Exactly. Because first of all, this whole entire like idea of like separate but equal in the black only spaces. What do you guys think, happened during the whole entire civil rights movement? Separate fountains for black people, separate buildings and so on, right? And then of course that's similar to what's been going on with like, the black only spaces or like the people of color only spaces. It's the same sort of shit that's happened in the past. Or how they keep on trying to, just redefine racism to mean like, prejudice and power. Oh, you cannot be racist against white people because white people have all the power and we don't have all the power, so therefore we can't be racist. Nonsense. And so that's also justifying hate too.
And
And
you know it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
yeah. And then also you mentioned like the whole entire name calling, like your Uncle Tom, your house nigger, your coon, blah 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 blah. Yeah. How is that no different than like the language that the KKK would use? Okay, I'm done with my whole monologue right there.
Yeah, but then I lost my train of thought because, like, you said something, and I had something that I really wanted to say, and then I forgot what it was.
It has no problem. Like sometimes when I think about something, I forget what I said. So
Yeah, because just like you said something, and it made me instantly think of something, but then you spoke a little further, and then it's kind of like, oh, I forgot what I was going to say.
yeah, like sometimes when talk to people who think similarly, the other person said the same thing that you were gonna say, so I kind of took the words out your mouth or something.
Anyway, I can read more of the article. The handout was accompanied by a color-coordinated meter with the red zone on the left saying white supremacists, the green zone on the far right labeled white abolitionists. A New York City Department of Education official told the Post that some parents at the school, which caters to 6th through 12th grades, are Lower East Side, first shared the material with staff. The principal would then disseminated it to every parent as parts of a series of materials meant to reflect and as suited for adults, the official said.
Huh. Interesting. Is there anything more for the article?
Yeah, I'm reading as much as I can. A DOE rep said in a statement, anti-racism and the celebration of diversity is at the core of our work on behalf of young people of New York City and the East Side Community Schools, students, parents, students, parents, and staff partnered together to advance equity in their community.
Oh
Not
God.
equality, not equality, equity.
Oh my God. This whole entire campaign about equity has been going on since like Joe Biden has been into office. Oh my God. When they say equity, what they really mean is equality of outcomes. They just don't want to admit it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, like there are like two types of equality. Obviously, equality of outcomes, like I mentioned before, where you basically, had to judge people based upon their race, based upon their sex, and just hire them because of the quota, right? And of course, the whole entire equality of opportunity, where judge people based upon meritocracy. And so obviously, I mean, against equality of outcomes. Equality of outcomes is terrible.
I agree with you. It should be equality of opportunity.
Right, but like I just hate how like Biden and these other kind of people like they keep on trying to push equity everywhere. Well, you see, well, there's not enough black people, there's not like enough minorities, so we must have some more equity to make the workplace much more diverse. Well, the thing about diversity, though, is like there are like different types of like diversity, because diversity is not necessarily a skin color. Because diversity is also how people think differently than you do. So diversity of perspective, if you will, because not everybody who shares the same sort of skin color obviously think the same sort of way. And there's also a question about like whether or not a person is qualified more for the job than your own personal race.
Yeah, I remember that there was this like news article. You know, I don't remember the direct details, but first they were celebrating her because she was a black woman who was like a CEO or whatnot. But then this black CEO hired a bunch of white people because she believed in a meritocracy, and so like she wasn't discriminating against her own race. She just believing in meritocracy, and then she got condemned by the far left for believing in meritocracy because to the far left, a meritocracy is a white supremacist concept.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah, the thing about, meritocracy is that it's actually being actively opposed, like you said, by these sort of activists because they hate, that there are like, less people that happen to be a certain skin color because there's like no quota. I'm sorry, but when I hire people, if I have my own business or work, whatever, I don't want to be hired just because I happen to be black. If someone hired me right now just because I'm black, I'll be really insulted, very insulted, because you're telling me that I'm not necessarily, of course, good on my own. You just want to hire me just because I'm a certain skin color. That's like the most insulting thing I could possibly imagine.
Yeah, I agree with you. The documents in question was shared with the school by parents as parts of ongoing anti-racist work in the school community, and it's one of many resources the school utilizes.
Wow. Yeah. Is that the end of the article?
Hold on. Um, oh, this is where Baron goes over the eight white identities. Uh,
Well, hold on. I'm gonna find a chart for that thing because I know like what it looks like. Just give me 1 second, and then I'll share the chart for everybody else. But the whole entire white identities, the eight white identities.
Yeah, it's called the Eight White Identities. It starts with white supremacists and it ends with white abolitionists.
All right, so hold on. I'm gonna share my screen so that everybody in the chat and you could also see what I'm seeing right here. All right, where's that chart? No, that's not a chart. Hold on. No, white. The eight white identities. It's like there's some sort of chart. Like, let me look at the images. Oh, there it is. Right here. Okay, so here are the white identities that I guess Baron was showing for his video. So is white supremacist, white vulnerabilism, white privilege, white benefit, white confessional, white critical, white traitor, and white abolish. There's a regime of whiteness and a action-oriented white identities. People who identify with whiteness are one of these. It's about time we build an economically of whiteness since white people have been the ones writing about and governing others. From the Slow Factory Foundation. That's a quite interesting name for like a company, Slow Factory Foundation. Yeah. So let's go like with the things one by one, okay? White traitor. So you're calling a person like a race traitor by saying white traitor?
Well, from where I see, what I have up is like white. One is white supremacist, and then under it says clearly marked white society that preserves, names, and values white superiority. Then it would say like number two, white voyeurism. And then the subtext would say, wouldn't challenge a white supremacist, desires non-whiteness because it's interesting, pleasurable, seeks to control the consumption and appropriation of non-whiteness, fascination with culture, example, consuming Black culture without the burden of Blackness. 3. White privilege. The subtext says, may critique white supremacy, but say deep investments in questions of fairness / equality under the normalization of whiteness and the whites rule sworn goal of diversity. And they put diversity in quotation marks. 4 is whites benefits. The subtext reads, sympathetic to a set of issues, but only privately, won't speak / acts in solidarity publicly because benefiting through whiteness in public. Some POC are in this category as well. 5. White confessional. The subtext says some exposure.
Wait. Let's pause 1 second. So white benefit is like some people of color are in this as well.
Yeah.
So they're calling them white passing them, right?
I guess so. I guess they're white passing, or like kind of like how there are Latinos, but they look white, they look and sound white. So I guess they're talking about white passing, or they might also be talking about Asians.
Okay, continue.
5. White's confessional. The subtext says some exposure of whiteness takes place, but as a way of being accountable to POC after seek validation from POC. 6. White's critical. The subtext says take on board critiques of whiteness and invest in exposing / marking the white regime. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'll continue. Refuses to be complicit with the regime. Whiteness speaking back to whiteness. I mean, it's like, why they talk about white people as
whiteness
people
talking back to whiteness. Like, what's that supposed to mean? Whiteness.
They talk about white people like white people are demons. It is like whiteness speaking back to whiteness. It's almost like saying the devil arguing with Beelzebub.
Wow.
Number 7 is white traitor. The subset says actively refuses complicitly, names what's going on. Intention is to subvert white authority. I mean, are we in a movie? It sounds like we're in a movie script. Okay, I'll continue. Intention to subvert white authority and tell the truth at whatever cost. Damn, that sounds like a movie. Need them to dismantle institutions. Then finally is white abolitionists, and that says changing institutions, dismantling whiteness, dismantling whiteness.
Whoa, wait. Dismantling whiteness. So if they're saying dismantling whiteness, do they want white people to, get away from the whole entire country?
I don't know. It sounds like they're advocating for a genocide or something.
Yeah, it sounds like genocidal language.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it does sound like a genocide, dismantling whiteness, and it finally says and not allowing whiteness. Oh my goodness, it says and not allowing whiteness to. Oh, I misread that. Not allowing whiteness to reassert itself. I thought it said not allow whiteness to.
So basically, they don't want white people to, have any sort of thing to do with America.
I guess so.
So they basically, say we need to get rid of whiteness. That's kind of like genocidal language.
Yeah, it is genocidal language. Like, imagine, if somebody said dismantling the Jews or dismantling, Black people. I mean, it sounds like genocidal language. And I mean, that's the end. That's the end. Or wait a minute, I think
Oh,
there's something else. Wait a minute, hold on. Oh, no. Yeah, this is actually the end. I think Barry gets just repeating himself.
wow, dismantling white. That is so genocidal. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like they speak about white people as if white people are demons. It's kind of like it writes about white people like white people are subhuman.
Okay, there are some comments that reacted to what we just said. Let's see, TFW white as a race is used to refer to anyone light skinned, no matter where they're from, like Russian or a Swede or an Irishman or the same. SJW warriors lacking self awareness. Yeah, because, like, of course, different people have different cultures. Just because they happen to be white doesn't mean they share the same culture. You see, it does sound genocidal. Let's see, how dare you assume my white identity? My white identity is 90 degrees pointing down. Okay. Meritocracy is a white supremacist concept. It's inherently content wise to say white is the best race. Meritocracy only care about merit.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. It's kind of like it's like they're a white supremacist with a guilty conscience.
Exactly. It's just wow. I cannot imagine saying that kind of language to any other race. Like the thing about it though, and I'm gonna probably try to develop my thoughts later on for this upcoming debate I have about this sort of ideas actually causing more racial tension with somebody else on my channel. Hint, hint, clue, clue for everybody else listening to this. But basically, like when I hear stuff like this, I cannot help but to think that it's quite normal to just have like anti-white hatred with this sort of language because it seems as though like our culture we don't necessarily talk down on the minorities or anything else, but when it comes down to white people I just notice like people do the absolute worst just to demonize them with this sort of language that we just read right now.
I think it's part of it is like race baiting, race baiting by the media. Like, like, where are you from? It's racist, like by Francesca Ramsey. And, it's kind of like, or this sort of thing taught in schools. We're not, we're not teaching kids how to think for themselves. We're telling them what to think.
By the way, have you seen the video about the privilege walk?
No, I haven't.
Okay, let me show you real quickly. I'm gonna go to my Twitter and then hold on. I'm gonna show you. See, share and then like stop screen and then I'm gonna share screen. It kind of takes a while to do all this sort of screen sharing right here. All right, so right here I'm gonna go to Twitter. There was like a video I saw where there is some sort of privilege walk where people, of course, had to go up a notch or whatever to show how much privilege they have because of their own personal circumstances and whatnot. So the video I retweeted it on my page through Twitter, and so I'm gonna try to find it real quick for you guys so that you can all see it.
Is it what I'm thinking it is? Like, where it's a bunch of white people, and it's kind of like, take a step forward. If both
Yeah,
of your
it's
parents
exactly what it is. Exactly.
say one step forward if both of your parents are married. One step forward if your parents gave you a car. One step forward, if your parents never had a divorce.
Exactly. It's exactly that concept. So I'm gonna share you guys the video. I just need to, sub the audio files for the live stream so you guys can hear it. But let's play the video and of course react.
Take 2 steps forward if you came from a supportive family environment. Take 2 steps forward if your parents were never laid off or unemployed not by choice. Take 2 steps forward if your ancestors were not forced to come to the United States. Take 2 steps forward if you grew up without or with a father figure in the home. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a private education. Take 2 steps forward if you never had to be worried about your cell phone being shut off. Take 2 steps forward if you never had to help mom and dad pay the bill. Take 2 steps forward if it wasn't because of your athletic ability that you don't have to pay for college. Take 2 steps forward if you never wondered where your next meal was going to come from. All right, so people in the front, take a look behind you, see where everyone is. Every statement I've made has nothing to do with anything any of you have done. It has nothing to do with the decision you've made. Everything I've said has nothing to do with what you've done. We know that people up here have a better opportunity. Does that mean that the people in the back can't race? No. We'd be foolish to not realize that we have been given more opportunity. We don't want to recognize that we have been given a head start. The reality is that we have. And that reality is.
Yeah, like, I really, really hate the state of public schools right now. I really do.
I mean, it would make more sense to call that economic privilege than white privilege.
Yeah, like, I don't understand why kids have to be taught this. Why can they not, do normal PE? What's the whole point of this? To make them feel ashamed or something because they have a head start because of other people?
I think kids too, not have, go like, I did this and it's all me and the other people are just lazy and unmotivated. Yeah, like, yes, some people do have a head start, like if you have a private tutor, you have a head start over a person who, couldn't afford a tutor at all.
Right. That's true. But also, of course, I know that like many schools, they could also do like, free tutoring after schools. And so I guess there's also ways to, do tutoring for free without having a private tutors. Because sometimes the teacher will volunteer to tutor kids at least from my experience. I'm not sure about the other state stuff.
Oh, that's from my experience too, The only downside is kind of like, how do I get home, How do I get home? Who would drive me home?
Right, because of the school bus and, they take you back home. And so you have to wait for your parents or whoever to pick you up.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think kids still have it much more easier to get home because they have Uber. So, like in the past, of course, like there was like no such thing as Uber, and so it's like either wait for somebody else or the taxi. So I think kids might have it much more easier with Uber or like Lyft or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh man, I would have loved to use like Uber to get back home if I had to go back to school, like when I was a kid. Oh man. But yeah, so any closing statements? It's been like an hour so far about all of this that we just talked about.
No, I mean, not really. I mean, it was quick because we mostly agree with each other on everything that it's really, really stupid, and every action causes an equal but opposites reaction of naturally this is going to happen. It's why, you and I have been pushing egalitarianism. We push egalitarianism for, that very reason.
Right, because the whole purpose of trying to judge people as collectives does more harm than good. And so it's kind of why I do think, of course, like when you push stuff like this in schools, you are gonna get like the data that we showed recently, which is like the Gallup poll about how the racial like tensions actually have gotten up and not gone down. So when you keep on pushing and pushing students like going through this sort of classes and whatever, basically you're gonna make tensions way worse than they are.
Now, I haven't heard anything about that Gallup poll.
Wait.
However,
Should I show you guys like the Gallup poll real quick?
oh yeah, sure, it's me. I've never seen it. However, I'm not surprised. I am not surprised.
Hold on, give me 1 minute. It's like on Twitter. It's like underneath like the Daily Wire, I think. Because there was like a Gallup poll from like that was published by the Daily Wire that has like new data that shows that race relations are actually on the downward side than getting upwards since like for the last 20 years or something. So give me 1 minute to find that real quick, and I'll show you guys like what's been going on with the Gallup poll. All right, so right here is okay, like a lot of stuff I've been posting on Twitter, so so it's gonna take a while for me to find it. I've been posting the hell out of this. So yeah, this is the tweet that actually got me so much hate. Like, thanks Black Lives Matter, thanks anti-racist, and thanks critical race theory. All these things really truly have helped humanity. So well done. That got me like so much hate for saying that. So much hate. Okay, let's go to the link. All right. It seems still that it's got like the different link. So hold on, I'm gonna share it. The different link. All right. So let me. There's like let's go to that direct link from like the Gallup poll. No, I don't want to subscribe to Ben Shapiro. No, sorry, Ben Shapiro. I'm not gonna give you money.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
All right. The ratings of the black-white relationship at like a new low. Now, the story spotlights are that 2-year 9-point drop in overall positive ratings of race relationships. That 33% of black adults, 43% of white adults say that race relationships are good. About 40% of black adults say that relationships will eventually work out, down 14 points. Let's see, for the second conservative year, U.S. adults' positive ratings of relationships between like black and white Americans are at their lowest point in more than 2 decades of measurement. Currently, 42% of Americans say relationships are between the groups are very or somewhat good, while 57% say that they're somewhat or very bad. The more recent ranking of like black-white relations in the United States is not statistically different than last year's 44%. However, the reading has encroached 9 percentage points over the past 2 years, as the nation has grappled with the murder of George Floyd and the subsequent nationwide protests and calls for racial justice. Now, here's the chart right here. Like, it says like the green is like very good and somewhat good, and like the blue is like very or somewhat bad. Okay, so right here, of course, like in 2001, 2003, 2005, 2007, of course, it's like somewhat bad. It's like all the way to 2001 to 2013, basically, is like somewhat bad. Well, most of that year, of course, you can see the green line for very or somewhat good, as the highest is like 70 right there. Then we come to 2013. And it just goes low and low and low and low and
Yeah,
low and low.
okay, that's because social justice does not about race-bait people. Social justice is full of race-baiting people like Francesca Ramsey. Like, where are you from? It's racist. And, like, you can't say this around black people. You can't say that around black people. You can't say this. It's kind of like, don't overthink it. Just treat me the way you would treat a white person.
Let me see some comments right here. You're on Twitter. I don't know how you can stand it. I don't stand it. Like, basically, the only reason I'm on Twitter right now is connect with some people and share my videos. That's it. Not for some sort of real engagement or whatever. So.
Yeah, that's me as well. Like, I just use Twitter to connect with some people. Like, you're there. What's the person's name? Shan Gory. Like, I like talking to Shan Gory over there, and I can't connect to Shan Gory any other place except through Twitter, and that's where we talk about anime and stuff. Like, I am watching that time I got reincarnated this time. I talk to people about And
all right. I'm sorry. Like, go on. Sorry.
And I talk to people about anime over there. But other than that, I mean, it's kind of a lot like how I got an and old tweets flagged down for having the wrong political opinion. It's like I had a tweet, defending a conservative, and that tweet's defending a conservative got flagged down for what was it, glorifying violence? That's bullshit.
Yeah, the thing about it is that even though when people directly insult me, like, call me a dumbass or whatever on Twitter, I don't report them, period. Because I know that's their free speech, and they think if I'm a dumbass, then they have the right to say I'm a dumbass. So I don't report anybody on Twitter. So let's read the rest of the article. Let's see. Recently, as 2001, 70% of U.S. adults rated black-white relationships positively. That changed after several high-profile killings of unarmed black people by police officers around the U.S. These incidents perpetuated the formation of multiple social justice movements that remain active today. I don't think it's not just the police brutality, though. I think social justice, too, is also like what caused the relationships to go down, too. So I think it's got like both things, really. It's not just the police brutality.
I agree because the police brutality was that's like always there, but it's kind of like I do think that when it comes to social justice, it gets people worked up. It gets people really worked up. It gets people fearful of white people. It gets people like black people to walk around with a chip on their shoulders. It's kind of like it's like what's her name, Joy DeGraw, who wrote about post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Oh my god, post-traumatic stress. I remember that, like, I saw a video based upon that, actually. It's like the craziest sort of idea. Because when I heard that idea, of course, like, I think, of course, that basically it reminds me so much about this idea of Assassin's Creed, right? This whole entire idea of experiencing slavery, even though you never experienced slavery.
And so like, okay, there's this like a 44 minute video or about an hour video on YouTube that talks about post-traumatic slave syndrome, where Joy DeGraw is giving a speech. There were mostly white people. She had a white audience. I didn't see a single black person. And what she did was she talked about each and every single horrible thing, that, white people did throughout history. And you could see the white people crying when I was thinking, what does that have to do with modern day, white people? It's up there with sins to the Father. It's like just because, there were white people who did horrific things in history doesn't reflect modern day white people. It's sins to the Father bullshits. And if white supremacy is bullshit because you shouldn't take credits for the accomplishments of other white people, then why should you take the blame for the shortcomings of other white people?
Oh, I got a comment from my Twitch account. Okay, from Twitch. I too think that the progression of social media makes it more visible and not so easy buried, if that makes sense. Exactly, like it's not just social media too, but also TV, because they always seem to focus on like the black deaths. That gets the most outrage and the most clicks. And so when a black person die, they constantly, play the video over and over and over again. But when it comes down to white deaths, I noticed that they don't report it as much. And so whenever it's like some sort of police brutality case, it always seems to be just a black person and not anybody else, just to get more clicks or more views.
Oh yeah, that reminds me something. Like that was the time where like I used to be a Black Lives Matter supporter. I mean, I never like really did anything. I was a slacktivist. Like all of my activism was online. But like years ago, I would watch the Young Turks, and like the Young Turks would fearmonger about white people, and I would constantly watch like racist white cops.
Like the Young Turks made a video a long time ago, celebrating that the white people are going to be a minority real soon or something.
And it's like I used to watch the Young Turks like very regularly, and that was a time period where I was afraid and terrified of white people. Like I watched the Young Turks regularly, and through watching them regularly, I developed a fear of white people, and I was terrified, and I felt uncomfortable whenever white people were near me. So it's like it's kind of like I do think that when it comes to racial hostility, it does have to do with the media going like, oh, this racist white people will kill you in a second because it's fear mongering. Like what you're doing is fear mongering. You're doing it for clicks.
Exactly, because like you said, it's just get the clicks, gets the views, and so whenever this sort of discussion happens, it's always had to be like race at the forefront of the issue. It's not, of course, using the egalitarian, principle of trying to solve the issue for like police brutality for everybody that lives here. It's just it has to be a race issue. But I don't buy for a single second that it's just a race issue because I think it's just an American issue, not a black issue, not a white issue, an American issue.
Yeah, and they do hide stories of white people being killed by the police. Like when a white person gets killed by the police, that is like that would never ever get covered. It's mostly like black people getting killed by the police that's covered.
Right. So let's see if there's anything else in the. Okay, there's some more stuff in the article for this study. Let's see. The latest findings are from a June 1st and July 5th Gallup poll that includes an oversample of Black Americans way to correct proportion of the population. During the poll's field periods, Jerry Colvin, the former police officer convicted of killing Floyd, was sentenced to one of the longest prison terms ever handed down to a U.S. police officer for unlawful use of deadly force. Yeah, that's the whole entire, situation with George Floyd, I think after the death of George Floyd, that was when they started to really push like critical race theory and anti-racism. And for a brief period of time, like books like, How to Be Anti-Racist and White Fragility were like on the New York Times bestseller. And so what happened to George Floyd was like terrible, and the police officer obviously should, deserve time in jail for what he did because what he did was just pure out murder. So that said, though, I noticed that sort of like same sort of time period. That's when he started to push anti-racism. That's when he started to push like critical race theory because people had that sort of guilty conscience about what happened to George Floyd.
But people on the left, even people on the left, make fun of white fragility. Like I think I saw Vosh making fun of white fragility. I've seen like people on both sides really do hate it. Like even like people like Vosh, even people that you think are far left. I mean, even like I've seen many people on the far left making fun of white's fragility.
Yeah, the whole book is like terrible. I reviewed the book on my channel and it's like, the best kind of read ever. But I remember hearing news more recently during the last few weeks or so that the same author, like Robert DiAngelo, made another book. It's called like, Nice Racism. So I never read the book myself, but I'm looking for a PDF. So if anybody who are listening to this stream have a PDF of that book, please tell me so I can read it for my video in the future.
Yeah, I never heard of it.
Yeah, okay, so let's see. While white Americans have typically been more likely than black Americans to say race relationships are good, a slim majority of both racialized groups rated them positively until 2016. Although the racial divisive events of the past few years have taken a toll on both Black and white American views of race relations, Black Americans' views continue to lag white adults. Currently, 10 points separate Black and white adult views of race relationships, 33% versus 43%. Each reading is the lowest on record for both racial groups. This gap is identical to last year, but smaller than 2018. So, wow. Let's see. Yeah, it's like really, really terrible. Like how In 2015, like everything went down the shit.
Yeah, but that's when we see social justice. That's when we see Francesca Ramsey. That's when we see NTV Decoded. This is when we see Anita Sarkeesian and Lacey Green. This
Well,
is
at least for Lacey Green, of course, he kind of changed for the better.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I'm just saying that's when everybody that's when the anti-SJW community really took off, and then unfortunately, the content is now suppressed, and it's like, oh, what's going on? Because it's kind of like, dude, all you're doing is fear mongering about fear mongering.
Exactly. Yeah, that was the same sort of period when I saw videos from BuzzFeed, trying to antagonize white people, like you said earlier. MTV News was also big during that time period, and these other kind of, big, race baiting YouTubers. And so, yeah, that time period, crazy. And it's still crazy. It's getting crazier right now. I say, what we're experiencing right now in 2021 is honestly like no different than like what's happening in 2015. And matter of fact, because it's now more institutionalized, because like a lot of these places have like this sort of CRT anti-racism stuff in our schools and everywhere else in our jobs. So it's actually worse now in comparison back then.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Right, right. So let's see optimism. Oh, excuse me, optimism. I cannot talk. Even as Americans rate black-white relationships negatively today, they continue to be optimistic about the future overall. 57% of Americans adults say that a solution to the problem of the black-white relationship will eventually be worked out, and race relations will not always be a problem, while 40% disagree and say that there will always be a problem. The optimistic attitude have been roughly the same level since 2013, including last year's 59% reading, aside from a brief uptick to 67% shortly after Barack Obama was elected president in 2008. The public was less optimistic between 1993 and 2011 than they are now. Yeah, crazy. Now let's look at the chart right here. The chart right here. So the optimism about black-white relationships, like it's like not that high right now. Like it was like the highest right there was like 2009 at 67%, and I guess the lowest was 44% back in 1983, and 2021 is like 57%. Wow, that is crazy. That's why I kind of said in my tweets that thank you social justice, thank you Black Lives Matter, and then so many people got mad at me for saying that.
Yeah, it's pretty much, social justice, BuzzFeed, Francesca Ramsey, all the race baiting.
Yeah, and people think I'm stupid for saying that, but oh well, that's their loss. That's their loss. Okay, so anyway, I think we're really over the limit right now. But before we sign off, do you want to plug in your social media and your YouTube or whatnot?
I don't really do YouTube anymore. Like I'm really busy with work. But if anybody likes what I have to say, you can find me on Twitter on at Rin Michaelis. I'm also on Minds, and the Minds is where I share more of my right swing opinions. So if you follow me on at Rin Michaelis on Twitter, it's going to be like food porn and like me talking about anime, but where I put my right wing opinions at, because I can't put a right wing opinion on Twitter. Twitter discriminates against right wing opinions. I put that on minds.com by the same name, Raina Michaelis.
All right, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate you, reacting to the video that we saw, reacting to the church, and of course, reading the articles that we just read. I really do appreciate you coming on again.
Yeah, I mean, you are not alone. Like it's you, it's me, it's your boy Pat. We've been saying these things for so many years. It's kind of like people, you know, they called us Nazis, they called us alt-rights, they called us, you know, racist and fascist, they called us. And it's kind of like we've been proven right. It's like we've gotten proven right. Like, you know, every action has an equal but opposite reaction.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.